Okay, so what if we could just rewire civilization itself? Sounds pretty wild, right? Well, we're about to explore a proposal that argues we can do exactly that. It's this massive vision for a new global architecture, and it's all laid out in a manifesto on what it calls the geometry of a connected planet.
Just let that sink in for a second. This is the starting point. A world of total, absolute inclusion. Nobody is left offline. Nobody is left outside the formal economy. It's a really bold, almost breathtaking premise for everything that comes next.
So that's really the big question, isn't it? Is this all just some far-off science fiction dream? Or, as the source argues, is it simply the next logical step? The next version of how we organize ourselves as a species? Let's dig in and break down the argument. So the core idea here is all about geometry. But we're not talking about countries and borders in the old-fashioned sense. No, we're talking about a new shape of power and prosperity, one that's defined by networks and data, not by physical lines drawn on a map. And this is the absolute key. For most of human history, billions of people have been economically invisible. They're undocumented, unbanked, completely disconnected. The central claim here is that the tech we have right now can end that invisibility for good. Okay, so how do you actually build this new world? Well, the source material lays out 4 foundational technologies. It calls them the digital pillars. Think of them as the building blocks for this whole new system. And here they are: universal internet access, universal digital identity, universal digital banking, and this really fascinating concept called reverse surveillance. Let's walk through each one piece by piece. First up, connectivity. With satellite constellations like Starlink basically blanketing the globe, the argument is that 100% internet coverage isn't a dream anymore. It's just an engineering problem that's being solved as we speak. The internet becomes a basic utility, the foundation for everything. Next, identity. How do you prove you are who you say you are? The model for this is India's Aadhaar system, which gave over 1 billion people a unique digital ID. If you replicate that globally, it means every single person can be formally recognized. They can vote, open an account, and truly participate in society. Then you get to the money. With digital wallets and transfers that cost nothing, all the friction of the old financial system, the fees, the delays, the corruption, it just dissolves. It creates this global economic network where anyone can send money to anyone else, instantly and for free. Now, this last pillar, this is where it gets really interesting. It completely flips the script on surveillance. Instead of the government watching the citizens, this system proposes the exact opposite. Imagine a world where every single dollar of public money, every vote a politician makes, is tracked on a public ledger for everyone to see. It is radical transparency. So the theory is pretty compelling, right? But what does it actually look like in practice? Well, the manifesto applies these 4 pillars to one of humanity's oldest and most fought-over assets: land. 60%. That's a huge number, but what on earth does it represent? It's the share of all court cases in many developing nations that are about land disputes. Unclear ownership is a massive roadblock. It causes conflict, and it stops economic progress in its tracks, trapping people in poverty because they can't prove they own the one major asset they might have. The proposed solution is actually really elegant. It starts with satellites mapping every single piece of land. Then that ownership gets registered on a public blockchain, which makes it totally secure and indisputable. And suddenly, that land is no longer just a patch of dirt. It's collateral. It unlocks credit, and that allows a farmer or a small business owner to finally get a loan and build their future. So what's the total economic potential if you apply this new digital geometry across the entire global south? Well, this brings us to the massive headline-grabbing claim of the entire argument. $50 trillion. I mean, that's just a staggering figure. It's almost hard to get your head around. But the source is really specific about where this value would actually come from. And this is the crucial point. This is not about printing money. It's about unlocking what they call latent value. It's the value of land that can't be used as collateral, the value of an entrepreneur who can't get a loan, the value that's just lost to corruption. The wealth is already there, it's just frozen solid by a broken system. And this table breaks it down perfectly. Each one of those pillars we talked about acts like a lever. Digital inclusion? Boom, everyone is a market participant. A cashless economy creates a frictionless flow of everything. Transparent governance slashes corruption, and digitizing land creates this massive base of collateral, which could fuel an absolute explosion in entrepreneurship.
So if you tie all this together, the manifesto argues this isn't just an economic shift. It's the start of a whole new era of how we're governed, something it calls the age of visibility.
And this is the end game, visible governance, a system where governments aren't judged on their promises or their ideology, but on their real-time, data-driven performance. When everything is visible, accountability basically becomes automatic.
So here's the big picture summary. The old geometry of civilization was built on secrecy and top-down hierarchies, and an artificial scarcity created by gatekeepers. The new geometry? It's all about transparency, decentralized networks, and the potential for real abundance. And this has huge implications for geopolitics. It suggests that nations in the global south don't have to play catch-up anymore. They can leapfrog directly into this new model. They can achieve what the source calls digital sovereignty, where control over their own data and their own networks becomes their main source of power.
And it all ends with this powerful thought. The technology, the tools, the blueprint, it's either already here or it's coming into focus very, very fast. So the final question isn't a technical one, it's a moral one. It's a choice about whether this incredible new power will be used to concentrate control for the few or to distribute it and empower the many.